Welcome to Page by Page. So my name is Paige Smith, and I am so excited because I am celebrating my 7-year anniversary. My husband and I have been married for 7 years, you guys. 7 years, which is huge, especially considering that when we got married, we were 21 years old. We were college students, we were broke, and we just took a step of faith. We did what we believed God was telling us to do. We got married January 1st, 2014. And shortly after that, we got pregnant with Elijah unexpectedly. We still graduated with our class, him from Morehouse, me from Spelman, with Elijah 3 months in tow on graduation day. And we've gone on to have 2 other beautiful children. We've gone on to do ministry together, to travel together, to launch out in our own ministries and businesses together, to buy our first home together. So many things we've been able to do being married together. And so if you've been following the journey, we've been on Reimagine series. We talked about reimagining pregnancy and birth. We talked about reimagining motherhood. And today, in honor of my husband and I's 7-year anniversary, we are talking about reimagining marriage. Woo! So I have 7 just little nuggets that I wanted to share with anyone who might be newly married, or maybe you're just thinking about what is marriage all about. These are 7 tips from 7 years of marriage. So the first one is that marriage is life with your best friend. And so I know for some people, they might just think, what does marriage really look like? Think about your best friend. And marriage is life with your best friend. Even if when you guys get married, you may not feel like you're best friends, 7 years later, I will tell you that your husband, your wife will be your best friend. And so marriage is fun, marriage is exciting, marriage is adventurous, marriage is movie nights and traveling, marriage is coming together, and marriage is also conflict at times. Just like your best friends, the people who are closest to you can get on your nerves or under your skin. Marriage is also that, working through difficulties with your best friend. The next one is that becoming one does not happen overnight. And so I think some of us can have a fantasy in our minds that the wedding day equals us being one with this new person. The wedding night equals complete unity and just total, just unconditional love. But it takes time. It's a process. I'll say that 7 years into marriage with my husband, and I feel like we're still learning each other. We're still being perfected in love for one another. And another thing is that becoming one does not mean you have to be the same person. I know that I am guilty of that. Sometimes I want my husband to be a carbon copy of myself. I think we all want that sometimes in relationships. It's like, oh my gosh, can they be more adventurous or extroverted? And so we're called to be one in marriage, but we're not called to be the same person. And so that's something that would have helped me day one if I was not trying to change my husband or change myself to be more like him, but to know we are 2 whole, complete people that God is bringing together. Okay, so the next point is that you can grow together. And I think that's another misconception with marriage, that you have to be this perfect person before you get married, and that's not true. Of course, you want to pursue your personal goals. You want to make sure your relationship with God is solid and just work on yourself in your single season. But you do not have to be perfect to be married. I can only speak from our experience. We were not completely established before we got married. We had a great foundation spiritually. We had great parents that raised us and just set a great foundation. But I'll say financially, we were college students. We were juniors in college when we got married. We were literally just like living on campus. When we decided to get married, we moved into, we rented out 1 room and we slept on a little pallet, and we had just very, very humble beginnings. And I actually love sharing that story because now we're homeowners. but I love the fact that we have grown together. One of my, our mentors, he was saying that, you know what, it actually is a special that you guys got married when you weren't established, because now you can build something together. You can establish something together. You guys aren't both set in your ways. So I wanted to encourage someone who's newly married and they feel like, oh my gosh, we do not have it all together spiritually, naturally, anything. We're trying to get our health together. We're trying to get our finances together. That is okay. Do it together. Support one another. If you guys are both trying to get in shape, you know, run on Saturdays together for 10 minutes, you know, start small. If you guys are trying to get your finance together, start a Dave Ramsey's course together. You can grow together in your marriage. The next one is that you're better together. And so there's a scripture that says that it's better when there are two, because if one falls, the other one can pick him up. And that's how marriage is. Again, it's two imperfect people coming together by God's grace, loving one another. And so there are times that you're going to see your husband at low moments. There's going to be times that you'll have low moments, but you guys can support one another when that happens, and you're better together for that. I'll say that my husband and I we're not opposites of one another, but we're definitely different. You know, I'm more extroverted, he's more introverted. And so we balance each other out. We bring out the best in one another. And so that's another thing, that you do not have to make your spouse become you. And you don't want that, because you guys are better as the two unique individuals coming together. The next point is that you will be stronger because of the difficulties you face in your marriage. And so marriage will not erase difficulties. Marriage does not mean that you will never go through any difficulty. You actually will probably go through just as much or more difficulty being married to someone, because you're dealing with their issues as well. When they hurt, you hurt. So you still will probably deal with sickness or loss or grief, depression, anxiety, all these different things that as humans we experience in this lifetime. But you're stronger because you go through it together. You're stronger because you're working through those things together. Okay, so my next point is to keep everything in order in your marriage. And I'll just say that if you do have children, it's so easy to start putting your kids first unintentionally, because they have so much need and they're so dependent and they're so cute. It's so easy to pour all of your time into them, especially for me as a mom, as a woman. But I just wanted to encourage anyone out there just to remember first things first. And of course, the first thing is your relationship with God, but after that, it's the relationship with your husband, with your spouse. And so never stop nurturing that. Even after, if the children come, never stop nurturing that with date nights, with marriage conferences, with retreats, with vacations, with getaways. So that was my last point, basically to keep everything in order. Even when children come, to never forget that you are married to your spouse, not your children. That God says, let no man separate what he has brought together. And that means even your kids. So it's so easy to keep pouring into them, but just remember that your husband, your marriage comes first, and to nurture that and to let that grow. Okay, the last point is that marriage is God's idea. It's God's idea for a man and a woman to come together in holy matrimony. He was the one that first shaped Eve out of Adam's rib to be a helpmeet to him, to be a support to him. It was Adam that first said to Eve, you are bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. It was Jesus that compared the church to being his bride. And marriage is supposed to reflect the love that Jesus has for his bride. It's supposed to be a picture of unconditional love. It's supposed to be a picture of sacrificial love. And so we cannot do marriage without God, because it's God's idea. And so if you're married or you're thinking about getting married, just know that in humility, that you cannot do it in your own strength. You cannot love another human being without God. Even marriage, to me, it's so much more than a contract. Even more than a relationship, it's something that requires divine intervention and supernatural grace to see through. And so in 7 years, I can say these are just 7 tips that I have for anyone who is trying to reimagine marriage and think of marriage through a kingdom biblical lens. And also to say that it has been God, first and foremost, that has kept my husband and I 7 years. And I know that he will continue to keep us So I hope that these 7 tips on how to reimagine marriage were helpful for you. And just stay tuned. Continue to follow me on Facebook and Instagram. I'm going to be having some more exciting things. And make sure to subscribe. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Love you all.